Are you seeing this full screen slide? Okay, so today I will discuss this neoplastic swellings of thyroid. First, we will discuss clinically discrete swellings. There are two types of clinically discrete swellings: isolated or solitary swelling, which account for 70% of cases. Is my voice is clear? Please tell my voice is clear or not.
Yes, doctor, clear.
Okay. So isolated swellings means this is the only swelling in the thyroid gland while the rest of the gland is normal. No other abnormality apart from this isolated swelling. In contrast, there is other type of swelling called dominant swelling, which account for 30% of cases. This is a swelling which is clinically evident in the form of palpable contralateral lobe or generalized malnodularity. That is, you can feel or see one swelling which is more prominent, but the rest of the gland is also abnormal in this case. Either the rest of the gland is showing generalized abnormality or small nodules, but one of them become more prominent. The risk of this is the risk of neoplasia. These are having the chances to develop into malignant swellings. Roughly 15% of isolated swellings turn to be malignant. An additional 30 to 40% are follicular adenoma. In thyroid, follicular adenoma we practically take as same as malignant because the differentiation between follicular adenoma and carcinoma is very difficult clinically. Only on core tissue biopsy it can be solved. Even FNAC cannot tell whether it is follicular adenoma or carcinoma. And the incidence of malignancy or follicular adenoma in dominant swelling is about half that of isolated swellings. So both isolated and dominant swelling have a risk of malignancy. We have same investigations that discussed earlier in the two lectures, but have different meanings for these. Thyroid function test is the baseline test. We do first TSH, and depending on its value, we further do T3 and T4. Autoantibody titers. This determine which swelling is a manifestation of chronic lymphocytic thyroiditis. And there is a special type of cancer which occur in these patients if the patient has chronic lymphocytic thyroiditis. We will discuss later. Ultrasound, it determines the physical characteristic of thyroid swelling. That is whether the swelling is cystic and whether the swelling is solid and whether there is only one swelling or multiple swelling, one more larger and the other is small. Ultrasound will give this information. Isotope scan, this is radioactive iodine uptake scan. This determines functional activity relative to the surrounding gland. Like in this picture, you see a scan showing both lobes of the thyroid. One part of the thyroid is marked in circle. This white line does not represent the skin. This is just a highlight to make it prominent. This patient has clinically palpable swelling in the left lobe. And on radioiodine uptake test, this area does not show any uptake of radioactive material. So we label as cold nodule, that is not taking up radioactive iodine. And cold nodule has more chances of malignancy. In contrast, here, this patient has a clinically palpable swelling in the isthmus. And on radioiodine uptake test, it shows increased uptake of radioactive material. This type of swelling are called as hot nodule. Hot nodule has very low risk of malignancy. Fine needle aspiration cytology. This has excellent patient compliance, is simple and quick to perform in outpatient department and can be repeated easily. It helps in the diagnosis of colloid nodule, thyroiditis, papillary carcinoma, medullary carcinoma, anaplastic carcinoma, and lymphoma. So you can see the exception is follicular. It cannot help in the diagnosis of follicular adenoma or follicular carcinoma, because this differentiation between follicular adenoma and carcinoma does not rest only on the differentiation of cells. It depends on identification of whole histology, that is, whether there is invasion of the capsule and whether there is invasion of vessels or not. FNAC is obviously less reliable in cystic cases, because when we aspirate something which contains fluid, only fluid will come, no cells will come. So this is more value or only value in solid swelling. When we aspirate in solid swelling, we get some cells to identify histologically. These are some different pictures that we see histologically. The first one is papillary carcinoma. The second one, you can see cells are buried in abundant colloid material. This is a case of colloid goiter. As on the right side, third one is a pattern showing follicular neoplasm. This chart shows initial management options that we are going to employ. When thyroid nodule is found clinically or detected on imaging, first thing we do is thyroid stimulating hormone assessment as well as ultrasound. Ultrasound will detect whether it is solid or cystic. TSH will show whether it is normal level, elevated, or subnormal. If TSH is normal or elevated, means this is likely to be a cold nodule. So we will do FNAC based on sonographic and clinical criteria. If TSH is subnormal, means hyperactivity. So we will do radionuclide thyroid scan. And if the nodule turns to be non-functional, that is cold, again we will proceed to FNAC. And if the nodule is functioning, that is hot, we will check T4 and T3. If these values are subclinical, we do observation only. And if those show overt increase, that is overt hyperthyroidism, then we treat the patient. Treatment, just the guideline here. The main indication for operation is the risk of neoplasia, which include follicular adenoma as well as malignant swelling. The clinical criteria include the swelling will be feel hard, it will be irregular, it will fix to the surrounding, there will be paralysis of recurrent laryngeal nerve, and you will find deep cervical lymphadenopathy. These all suggest the possibility of neoplasm. Now the management guideline depending on the results of FNSC. If FNSC is non-diagnostic, you should repeat FNSC using ultrasound guidance. If it shows papillary thyroid cancer, go straight away to thyroidectomy. If it is suspicious for malignancy, again thyroidectomy is the choice. If FNSC is showing benign result, then we have to repeat ultrasound in 6 to 18 months to assess the stability. And if the growth is more than 20% in 2 or 3 dimensions, then we should repeat FNAC. If we have atypical cells of undetermined significance or follicular lesion of undetermined significance, then we have to repeat FNAC in 2 to 3 months. And after 2 to 3 months, if the result remains same, then we should proceed to surgery. And if it comes to benign, then we increase the interval of ultrasound to 16 to 18 months. If FNAC shows follicular neoplasm, that we cannot differentiate whether it is adenoma or carcinoma, then we should do TSH. If TSH is low or low normal, consider radionuclide scan. If it shows functioning, means it is benign. So we will continue for increasing interval ultrasound. And if it is non-functioning, showing cold nodule, that will be the risk of neoplasm, then we should do surgery or molecular diagnostic testing. Some description of different thyroid neoplasms. We can classify as benign or malignant. Benign, only one variety, follicular adenoma. Malignant can be primary or secondary. Primary, those arising from follicular epithelium. It may be differentiated or undifferentiated. Differentiated types include follicular carcinoma or papillary carcinoma. If undifferentiated, this is anaplastic carcinoma. Tumor may arise from parafollicular C cells. This causes medullary carcinoma. Or it arises from lymphoid cells causing lymphoma. Secondaries may be due to metastasis or local infiltration. Benign tumor, only one follicular adenoma present as clinically solitary nodule. It cannot be differentiated from follicular carcinoma, which needs histology. In adenoma, there is no invasion of capsule or perivascular blood vessels. Treatment is wide excision, preferably a lobectomy. That is, if nodule is present in right lobe, we remove whole of the right lobe. And as the remaining thyroid tissue is normal, so prolonged follow-up is unnecessary. Malignant tumors. Vast majority of malignant tumors are carcinoma, divided into follicular and papillary. Secondary growth are rare, but blood-bound metastasis can occur from primary carcinoma of breast, colon, kidney, and melanoma. This shows relative incidence of different primary thyroid tumor. Papillary carcinoma has the highest incidence, accounting for 60% of thyroid malignancies, followed by follicular carcinoma 20%, anaplastic carcinoma 10%, and medullary carcinoma and malignant lymphoma 5% each. Different etiological roles play in different types of thyroid malignancy. Like differentiated thyroid carcinoma, especially papillary, frequently follows accidental irradiation of thyroid in the childhood. Incidence of follicular carcinoma is high in endemic goitrous areas, and malignant lymphoma can present in a patient known to have autoimmune thyroiditis. So we can thought that lymphocytic infiltration in the autoimmune process may be the etiological factor. How this patient presents. The annual incidence is about 3.7 per 1 lakh of population. Sex ratio is 3 females to 1 male, and mortality is about 2 to 3%. Commonest presenting symptom is thyroid swelling. And usual history is that swelling appear, patient notices swelling which gradually increases in size, and as the size increases, patient develop pressure symptoms or due to involvement of the surrounding viscera. In large cervical lymph node may be the presentation of papillary carcinoma. Sometimes thyroid gland remain impalpable. There is no evident swelling in the thyroid gland, but from the very beginning, it metastasis to cervical lymph node and present as enlargement of cervical lymph node. And when these patients are biopsied or FNAC done in these cervical lymph nodes, then it shows the papillary pattern. Recurrent laryngeal nerve paralysis may be the presenting feature of locally advanced disease. Anaplastic growth are usually hard, irregular, and infiltrating. Pain, often referred to the ear, is frequent in infiltrating growth. Pathologic features, papillary carcinoma. Histologically, tumor shows papillary projections and characteristic pale empty nuclei, which is called as orphan any-eyed nuclei. You can see in this slide that in the papillary projection only the surrounding rim of cells are present. These are very rarely encapsulated. And multiple foci may occur in the same lobe as primary tumor, that is more than one swelling, both as primary or less commonly in both lobes. This is due to lymphatic spread in the rich intrathyroidal lymph plexus or due to multicentric tumor. Spread to lymph node is common, but blood-borne metastases are unusual unless the tumor is extrathyroidal. That is in the advanced stage when the papillary carcinoma extend beyond the thyroid capsule, extend beyond the thyroid, then it is spread to the bloodstream and then goes to the other side. Otherwise, it remain to the thyroid gland and the lymph nodes. Occult carcinoma, that is hidden carcinoma. We cannot detect clinically that thyroid, if there is any thyroid swelling, but the papillary carcinoma is detected by enlarged cervical lymph node. So we will find enlarged lymph node in the jugular chain with no palpable abnormality of thyroid. Here the primary tumor may be no more than a few millimeter in size, which is obviously can't be palpated clinically. The term occult is applied to all papillary carcinoma which are less than 1.5 centimeter in diameter. These have excellent prognosis. Even though they have metastasized to the lymph node, but as the thyroid gland itself contains a small tumor and the thyroid capsule is intact, so have excellent progress because surgery, when this patient undergoes surgery, it tend to remove whole of the primary tumor. Follicular carcinoma. These are macroscopically encapsulated, but macroscopically there is invasion of the capsule as well as vascular spaces in the capsular region. Multiple foci are seldom seen, so if swelling in right lobe, usually left lobe is free. Lymph node involvement is less common than in papillary, but blood-borne metastases are twice as common. So mortality is also twice as high. See, metastasis in bone shows as osteolytic lesions. You see black areas within the skeleton, within the white skeleton, which shows lysis within the skeletal muscles. Here you can see some differences between papillary and follicular carcinoma. Male patients are more commonly affected with follicular carcinoma, but it is not that male cannot get papillary. Yes, male can get both papillary and follicular, but the incidence is somewhat higher for follicular. Lymph node metastasis is more common in papillary carcinoma, so the chances of local recurrence is more in papillary. In contrast, blood vessel invasion is more common in follicular, so it has more chances of recurrence rate, overall mortality, and distance metastasis. We use TNM system for staging these thyroid cancers. TNM system consists of three components: T for tumor, N for nodes, and M for metastasis. Primary tumor, that is T. Tx, we will call as Tx if primary tumor cannot be assessed. T0, when there is no evidence of primary tumor. Occult carcinoma can be both Tx and T0. T1 is tumor of 2 centimeter or less in greatest dimension, which is limited to the thyroid. Further divided into T1A, tumor is 1 centimeter or less. 1B, when the tumor is 1 to 2 centimeter, limited to thyroid. T2 is tumor between 2 to 4 centimeter, whereas T3 tumor is more than 4 centimeter, limited to thyroid, or any tumor with minimal extrathyroidal extension. T4A is moderately advanced disease. This is tumor of any size extending beyond the thyroid capsule to invade subcutaneous, soft tissue, larynx, trachea, esophagus, or recurrent laryngeal nerve. T4B is very advanced disease. Here the tumor invades prevertebral fascia or in cases carotid artery or mediastinal vessels. All anaplastic carcinomas are considered T4 from the very start. T4A is intrathyroidal anaplastic carcinoma, whereas T4B is anaplastic carcinoma with gross extrathyroidal extension. In the figure, you can see labeling of different lymph node areas. 1A submental, 1B submandibular, then the anterior cervical chain, 2, 3, 4, then 5A, 5B posterior cervical chain, then 6 prelaryngeal, pretracheal, and 7 mediastinal nodes. This represents sequence in when you study some other topics in the head and neck region. You can find that the first involvement is to the level 1, then 2, 3, 4, and goes on. But in case of thyroid, the order is reversed because the level 6 node is more close to the thyroid gland. So obviously tumor go first to level 6 node, then to other nodes. So don't confuse with this labeling or when you study some other topics in the head and neck region. NX is regional lymph node, cannot be assessed. N0, no regional lymph node metastasis. N1 is the presence of node metastasis, divided into N when A metastasis to level 6 node. This is the first stage. This includes peritracheal, paratracheal, and perilaryngeal nodes. Whereas N1B is metastasis to unilateral, bilateral, or contralateral cervical node, that is level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or to level 7 nodes. Distant metastasis only include M0 and M1, whether present or not present. How we diagnose? We have same tool of investigation for any disease of the thyroid. In cases of malignancy, diagnosis usually obvious on clinical examination. As the tumor felt hard, it cannot be mobilized, the surface will be irregular. But remember, Riddle's thyroiditis is also feel hard because of increased sclerosis. Failure to take up radioiodine is characteristic of all thyroid carcinoma, that is cold nodule, but it also occurs in degenerating nodule as well as in thyroiditis. Thyroid antibody titers are often raised in carcinoma. FNAC makes some histological differentiation possible except follicular. Can say no diagnostic test is absolutely certain and exploration with excision, that is lobectomy, is essential when in doubt. In an anaplastic and obviously irremovable carcinoma, incisional or needle biopsy is justified. Otherwise, we tend to prefer FNA. Treatment guidelines: this patient needs initial treatment, usually surgery, followed by management of persistent or recurrent disease, and then the long-term management or follow-up. Initial treatment guidelines: surgery is the primary mode of therapy for differentiated thyroid cancer. And after initial surgery, patients are managed by different choices like radioiodine therapy, thyroid hormone suppression, or external beam radiotherapy. Patient with differentiated thyroid cancer require follow-up with physical examination, biochemical testing, including serum thyroglobulin, ultrasound, and other imaging, depending on the findings of ultrasound. Some description of anaplastic carcinoma: mainly in elderly women. Local infiltration is an early feature with spread by lymphatics as well as bloodstream. Some lesion present in advanced stage with tracheal obstruction, and they require urgent tracheal decompression by doing isthmusectomy. Tracheostomy should be avoided. Complete resection is justified if disease appears to be confined to the thyroid or just within the strap muscles. But even then, survival rarely exceeds 6 months. Radiotherapy should be given in all cases and may provide a period of palliation. Medullary carcinoma. These are tumors arising from parafollicular C cells which are derived from neural crest. Histologically, we will find characteristic amyloid stroma. This tumor produces high levels of serum calcitonin and carcinoembryonic antigens. And this calcitonin level fall after resection and rise again with recurrence. Diarrhea is a prominent feature in 30% of cases, and this is due to 5-hydroxytryptamine of prostaglandin that this tumor produces. But 10 to 20% tumors are familial. So, medullary carcinoma may occur in combination with adrenal pheochromocytoma and hyperparathyroidism due to hyperplasia in multiple endocrine neoplasia type 2A. When this familial form is associated with prominent mucosal neuroma involving lips, tongue, and inner aspect of eyelid with murphanoid habitus, it is referred as multiple endocrine neoplasia type 2B. The familial form frequently affects children and young adults. Whereas sporadic cases occur at any age with no sex predominance. Lymph nodes are involved in about 50 to 60% of cases, and blood-borne metastases are also common. These tumors are not TSH dependent, so don't take up radioactive iodine. Prognosis is variable and depends on the stage at diagnosis. Any nodal involvement virtually eliminates the possibility of cure. Treatment is total thyroidectomy with either prophylactic or therapeutic resection of central and bilateral cervical lymph nodes. Familial cases are not detected by genetic screening. RET mutation identifies individuals who are going to develop medullary carcinoma later in life. If detected, this is supplemented by estimating serum calcitonin level in the basal state and after stimulation by either calcium or pentagastrin. And if calcitonin level rises, patient should undergo thyroidectomy. And prophylactic surgery is recommended for infants with genetic RET. This ends our today's discussion. "29 present." I will call you one by one. Let me know. Abdullah Haddad. Okay. Faisal Saad. Faisal Saad. Muhammad Al Harbi. Muhammad Al Harbi. Faisal Shamri, you want to ask something?
Dr. Muhammad writing present.
Yes, Doctor, I'm present. I have a problem with my microphone.
Okay.